Hey, this is Mr. Gore from New Sullivan. Special thank you to Cape Chicago. I'll have the information in the description. Today I want to talk to you guys about dotted notes, okay? And basically, it's when we add a dot to the notes that we already know. A dotted note essentially adds half the value to the value of the note we already playing. So in music, we hold out these different notes, okay? We got four different notes up here. I know we talked about maybe two more aside from these four, but the four notes we got is the first one is a whole note that looks like an oval. The second one is a half note. It looks like a lowercase d. The third one is the quarter note. It looks like a lowercase d with a darkened circle. And then the last one is eighth note, darkened circle with a flag at the top. Okay, so this is why you got to be good with math, with music. So once we find out what each one of these notes gets as far as beat wise, how long you hold them out, the dot just adds half the value to whatever number is already. So for example, number one, or the first one, is a whole note. Whole note gets 4 beats. You guys see that, right? And when you add a dot to the whole note, it will become 6 beats. So if I'm playing a whole note, let me just play the regular whole note. A whole note gets 4 beats. We got, and I'm gonna turn on the metronome as well. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it held out that whole 4. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I hit the drum one time and it's held out for 4. Okay. Now when we add the dot, that's adding half the value. Okay, so half of 4 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So now when I play a dotted whole note, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it's time to play a different note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? And most of the time, these different notes, like this, you will see if we were counting to 6, 6, 4. If we were in the time signature 6, 4, but we're gonna keep talking about 4, 4 for right now, because you will see these same notes in 4, 4. You just won't see the dotted whole note in 4, 4. You'll see a dotted whole note in 6, 4. The rest of these you'll see in any capacity. Okay. Dotted half note. Okay, so half note gets 2. Half of 2 is 3. Half of 2 is 1. I'm sorry. Half of 2 is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we hold that out for 3 beats. We got, if we playing it with the metronome, first we're gonna play the regular half note. I'm gonna play 2 half notes with the metronome, and then I'm gonna play 1 dotted half note right after. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 2 half notes. It took up 2 beats again. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and if I add a dot, then that's 3 beats. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it seemed like I held it out for 4, but that's not what I wanted to show you that we hold it out for 3, but you still have a beat left over. That could be a rest or a note. So if it's a quarter note after that, I'm gonna just do a dotted half note and then a quarter note, which is the next one that gets 1 beat. I'm gonna just combine them so you can see what a whole measure would sound like if you had that dotted half note. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I added a quarter note after the dotted half note, because remember, the whole thing is these are different combinations and puzzles to help us get to the number 4, or whatever number we count to. In this instance, we count to the number 4. So what you want to do is make sure that after you play that half note that's got a dot attached to it, it's not even you making sure, but I guarantee you that whatever music you look at or that you're reading, it will show you another note besides that. That won't be the only note in the measure unless it's a rest. You know what I mean? If it's a quarter rest, if it's 2 eighth notes, it's going to be something that equals 1 beat. Okay, so let's go, speaking of 1 beat, to quarter note. Okay, we know that a quarter note, this is pretty easy. Quarter note is just 1, 2, 2. It's the numbers, right? If we playing with the metronome, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, right? They just right with the numbers. They line up. That's what we count with. That's what the metronome is. That's what the count is. It's the pulse of music. 1 beat, okay? Now, it's a little tricky when you add the dot in because now it becomes 1.5 beat. And you might say, what? How do you count that? Okay, so think about it like this. Okay, remember the next note. Now I'm gonna jump a little ahead. The next note is a eighth note, and that's a half a beat. 2 of those equal 1/4 note, right? So if I'm playing a quarter note, which is 1 beat, and you got 1 half, 2 half, that's the other half. So half of a beat is either the first half, which is a number, or the second half, which is a and. That's how we determine eighth notes, okay? So what this is saying is you're adding another eighth note, and the eighth note is going to come in on number 2, right? So that means you can come in on the and after 2. If we were playing a dotted quarter note, you got 1 and 2. And you can come back in on that and after 2 because 1 and is already 1/4 note. But if we go 1 and 2, that's another half that we added on. That's the 1.5. 1 and 2 and, right? 1 and 2 and. Okay? Eighth note, the last one, gets half a beat. We just talked about it's either going to be a number or and, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Now, eighth note, like I said, it's either going to be a number or and, but the next note that we didn't, that's not on this chart, and we don't get those dotted, so I'm not going to talk about those, but we're not going to talk about those being dotted, but we'll talk about how we count them, right? We count 16th notes, the one with 2 flags at the top. We count those 1E and 2E, and remember they get a fourth of a beat. So you see how that says that an eighth note that's got a dot attached to it gets 3/4 of a beat. So you would think of that, if you playing that, it's probably going to have a 16th note at the end of it. That's how it usually is written. Whenever I see a dotted eighth note, most of the time it has a 16th note right after. And how will you think of that is 1E and So it takes up 1E and, or the first 3 of the 16th note syllables. 1E and, 2E and. Or if you had a 16th note and an eighth note if it started with a 16th note and the eighth note was the second note with the dot, it'd be 1E and right? 1E. But they don't usually write that like that for the simple fact that you can write all this stuff a lot of different ways, and that's just not a popular way to write it, especially putting a dot with it. Just makes it a little bit more confusing than it needs to be. But now we know how to count dots, okay? So when you see a dotted note in music, just know that it gets half, it adds on half the value to the original value, okay?